How are you, Emily?
I'm doing very well. It's a beautiful Monday morning.
It is a beautiful Monday morning, and does that mean that you run everything, executive assistant, or
You know,
you get everything dealt?
At the
I
execution.
assist. Exactly. I assist with the executions.
And our guest,
Our guest today is our senior apologist, Jimmy Akin, who recently came out with a wonderful new book, Teaching with Authority. So welcome, Jimmy.
Howdy.
exciting weekend for us. We gathered with some friends and we played Catholic trivia. And Jimmy, I think you missed the trivia.
I wasn't there.
You were there for all the rest of the visiting with our friends. But what'd you think of Catholic trivia?
It was fierce.
You didn't play though. You were you were the timekeeper.
I was the timekeeper.
But I just want playing.
He was getting ready for the execution.
But yeah,
exactly.
At the end of the trivia contest.
Of everyone who didn't win.
Playing trivia, Catholic trivia with trained theologians, apologists, philosophers, and people who are just great friends of Catholic Answers. It got a little intense.
Well, yeah.
People at one point one of the questions was about virtues and what are now how many chief corporal works of mercy are there? That's what it was. And Tim Staples, the director of apologetics here, says to me, "Is that the New Catechism or something else?" And I was like, I have no clue how to even answer that. So I said New Catechism. Well, it turns out that the answer is 7, which is what the Council of Trent says. But the New Catechism has joined giving food and drink as 1, which is 6. So mayhem broke out
Complete chaos.
over how many corporal works of mercy there are. So
it was very exciting, and it was very fun to see everybody get so worked up about it.
Yes.
You know, and defending their arguments and asking for distinctions in the questions and saying, okay, well, you know, where are you coming with that, and where is this going? It was very fun.
It's odd though to play Catholic trivia with such intensely Catholic people. One of the questions nobody knew except for our chaplain the answer to it. What emblem or symbol does the Pope give to cities or countries that are that have demonstrated their loyalty or in appreciation of their loyalty to the Holy See? And you have any clue what that is?
It could be the special device that is used liturgically in a basilica, but I'm blanking on the name of it.
Oh, okay. Well, this may be that. I don't know because I had no clue. I had never even heard of this as far as I know, and it's a golden rose. So I'd never heard of the golden rose before.
Nope, that's not what I was thinking of.
Oh, it's not. It's something different?
Yep.
We have a basilica here.
Yeah.
Right? And basilica
Mission
means...
Basilica San Diego.
So that's a church built in the late 1700s here. Well, yeah, late 1700s.
This one, yes.
So what does that mean, basilica?
Basilica was originally an architectural style that churches were built in, but eventually the term came to refer to a church that had special dignity. And so there's a special type of canopy that's used in basilicas to signify their status as a basilica. If you look anytime you're in Mission San Diego, you'll see the canopy up where the readings are given. And
that signifies
this
is a
basilica.
Special church. Yeah. Okay. And they don't have to be cathedrals.
No. Cathedral is totally different.
Fair enough.
Cathedral is where the bishop has his seat, his cathedra.
We do take questions here on Catholic Answers Today, and you are welcome to call 888-318-7884.
I'll get my phone out right now.
Yeah, well, you can just use the microphone. You'll be okay if you just stay right there. 888-318-7884. That number brings you directly here into the studio. It's probably different than the number you usually hear on Radio Maria. So
don't call that one.
Don't call that one because then you're bothering. No, you're not bothering anybody. But call here because that's directly into the studio here.
We'd love to talk to you.
318-7884. So Advent, we are in the season of Advent. I started to feel it on Sunday when after Mass we sang, O come, Emmanuel. And then it's like, oh, now I'm, you're in
now
it.
It's here.
But then the
That's
feeling takes a little while to catch up with you. And that hit me like, it's a beautiful.
It is such a beautiful song. Both in Latin and in English. I really love it.
Oh, yeah, you sang it. You were among the cantors at the Mass, and you sang it in Latin as the meditation during communion, right?
And then we sang it again in English as the recessional hymn because we just love it so much.
Yeah, good work. Good work, yeah.
Thanks.
yeah, it's beautiful either way. And it's funny because if you, since you those words are so like in your consciousness, you know, you've sung that song a million times probably if
Right.
you're a Catholic, and I don't know, does that sung in other Christian communities too? Do you know?
Oh yeah,
that's
absolutely.
a real popular
Very
one.
popular.
So when I was listening to it in Latin, I was like, I can speak Latin because I know.
Because you know what the words
I know
mean.
exactly what they're
Yes.
saying all through this. I was very impressed with myself. So Advent, it starts the liturgical year. Why, Jimmy, does it start the liturgical year?
Because because birth comes before death.
Oh, look at that. What
At least,
planning?
At least in ordinary linear time. So we celebrate Jesus' birth at the beginning of the liturgical year rather than his death, which is the climax of the liturgical year, his death and resurrection. And so in Advent, we're preparing for his birth at Christmas,
And
among other things.
among other things,
Among one other thing,
what's the other thing?
the end of the world.
Oh, maybe you might have thrown that in, not just as an addendum. Okay, so Advent, we are preparing for the coming of Christ at Christmas.
Two comings of Christ.
I see.
The
They're
first
both,
coming and the second coming.
All right,
And that's why we call it Advent. Because even in English, an
Yeah.
Advent means an arrival. You know,
Oh,
it's
yeah,
the
right.
advent of
Yeah.
the Great Depression or something would be the coming
the advent
of the Great
space
Depression.
age.
Yeah,
I remember.
yeah, exactly.
That was fun. I was alive for that. You were not, Emily. Sorry.
But since you're all into this Latin stuff,
oh, I speak Latin beautifully as long as you
so
sing it.
the word for to come in Latin
Yeah.
is venire. Venire adoremus.
Yeah. Oh, come on,
or
you faithful.
venite,
In case you didn't
actually,
know.
in that case.
Venite.
Venite.
Yeah.
So which makes it imperative. But the infinitive form is to come is venire,
Yeah.
and ad means to, and so to prepare for the coming, or the season preparing for the coming, is ad ventus. And so that's why we call it Advent.
And so we know that Christmas will come on December 25th. I will ask you shortly about how much we know about the date of Jesus' birth. But,
Okay.
So we feel pretty confident that we celebrate Advent. We'll have the 4 Sundays of Advent, and then Christmas will come. So when is the end of the world?
Well, we don't know.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But you've been studying for years.
Oh, yeah. But
So
I haven't studied that question in depth. Jesus said, don't bother.
he did? Really?
Yeah.
So make that clear. So we are anticipating that the Lord will come again.
Yeah.
And this is central to our faith, the idea that he will physically come again. Bodily come again. But he said, don't bother worrying about it?
Well, so what Jesus said himself and you can find this in Mark chapter 13, which is Jesus' major prophetic discourse in the Gospel of Mark. It's called the Olivet Discourse because he gave it on the Mount of Olives.
Okay.
And it's actually principally about the destruction of Jerusalem and the destruction of the temple in 70 A.D., because that's what sets off the discourse. Jesus and the apostles have just come out of the temple, and Jesus says, and they're going, wow, isn't this amazing? This
The temple itself, yeah.
And that's something that we know about from archaeology and from literary records we have, like from the Jewish historian Josephus. We know it was an astonishingly beautiful temple. In fact, later rabbis, after the destruction of the temple, had a saying, even though they weren't big fans of Herod the Great because he was like a super creep that killed
Yeah.
a lot of people,
Yeah.
they said, if you have not seen Herod's temple, you have not seen a beautiful building. And so the disciples are naturally impressed coming out of it. And Jesus says, you know what? There's not going to be one stone here that's left upon another. They're all going to be thrown down. And so he prophesied the destruction of the temple. And then they crossed the Kidron Valley, which is opposite the temple. And so they're on the Mount of Olives, where the Garden of Gethsemane is, looking across at the temple. And they say, well, tell us, when are these things going to be? And that starts Jesus' prophetic discourse. And so he has this big discourse about the signs that are going to lead up to the destruction of the temple. But he says nobody knows the hour when this is going to be. You can tell by some of the signs when it's starting to get close,
Yeah.
but no one knows the day or the hour, not the angels, not the Son, nobody. Only the Father knows that.
Okay.
And so he was literally, in the primary literal sense, talking about the destruction of the temple. But it's often been understood that that there's another application, because this foreshadows the end of the world in a certain way. And we see that in other passages of Scripture where we have warnings about Jesus is going to come like a thief in the night, and when people are saying peace and stability, it's destruction is going to come upon them and things like that. So even though we can know when we're entering a danger zone, and there have been many in church history, we're not going to be able to predict the final end with precision. That's going to be something we can't predict.
So
Consequently, I haven't wasted a lot of time
trying to figure out when
exactly
okay,
that.
Fair. But what we do, we stay prepared for it because of that idea that Christ will come like a thief in the night. You don't know
Exactly.
and so be prepared.
Yeah.
And we're prepared by what? Living a charitable life and
Yep.
accepting Christ's forgiveness, and
going to the sacraments, avoiding mortal sin, making sure you've been to confession if you've committed mortal sin.
So is this double nature of that prophecy of Christ that is, he's talking about the destruction of the temple, but there's a secondary meaning about the end of the world. Does this explain that there are some here who will not see death? And
actually, that passage occurs earlier in the Gospels.
Okay.
And that passage occurs before Holy Week, before Jesus gets to Jerusalem. It occurs during the Galilean ministry.
Okay.
And it occurs in all three of the synoptics. He says there are some standing here who will not see death or taste death before they see the kingdom of God coming with power. And then in every single one of the synoptic gospels, it says, and so many days later, he took them up on the mountain of transfiguration, and they saw him transfigured.
Oh, so it was a prophecy of the transfiguration.
Of the transfiguration is what that looks like.
Ah, did you know that, Emily?
No, I did not know that. So interesting.
So would you be able to win Catholic trivia if that was a question now?
Yeah, I think I would.
All right, so Catholic Answers, by the way, you're listening to Catholic Answers today on Radio Maria US, a Christian voice in your home. You can find out all about Radio Maria at radiomaria.us on the internet. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. Our co-host is Emily Sanchez, and our guest today is Jimmy Akin, whose brand new book, give us the title and subtitle, will you?
Teaching with Authority, How to Cut Through Doctrinal Confusion and Understand What the Church Really Says.
And that's from Catholic Answers Press. So Catholic Answers does a whole bunch of things. We publish books and magazines, and we DVDs, videos. We do radio and TV shows. We do all that. And among the things is those things is Catholic Answers Magazine. You can find out all about us at Catholic.com. And Catholic Answers Magazine, the November-December issue of this year, has a picture of a virgin and child on the cover.
Ooh, I bet I know which ones.
Okay, start with the virgin. Who do you think though?
I bet it's Mary.
You are good. All right.
Wow,
So, and the child is
I'll leave that to Emily. She's the expert.
Emily.
Probably the baby Jesus.
You
almost definitely.
The two of you are very well prepared people. So it also has these words with your name under it, Jimmy. Can we pinpoint the birth of Jesus? Da, da, da. All right. Yes or no question. Can we?
It depends on what you mean by pinpoint.
Okay.
Depends on the size of your pen.
Okay.
There we go. The distinctions.
That's
good.
very Catholic answer, isn't it? Okay. So.
You know that cover blurbs like that are come up with by the editor, not the author.
Yeah, that's not right. Yeah. That's right. So how much do we know about the actual date of Christ's birth?
Well, we know more than a lot of people think.
Okay.
It is possible to establish pretty clearly the year in which Jesus was born, and it's not the one that a lot of people think. It becomes harder to establish the day. We do have some evidence for a number of different candidate dates, but it's hard to lock one down specifically.
Okay, so the year I think I was taught when I studied theology in college in 1983 was about 6 BC.
Yeah, that's a common year you hear, 6 or 7 BC.
Because they said, that the calendar had been off. The was it Dennis the Short?
Yes, Dionysius Exiguus, or Dennis the Short.
So little Dennis, I call him.
Yeah,
he's the one who figured it out. The calendar.
The current system of years, that Christian epoch that we use.
And he had just didn't have the data we have now, so he was off by 6 years. That's what I was taught. Okay.
Yeah, and the way they get 6 BC is they say, well, okay, so the Gospels attest that Jesus was born during the reign of Herod the Great. And so Herod needed, because, he's like sends the baby.
Yeah, he's kind of
to kill the
important
baby
story.
boys and stuff.
Right.
So it had to be when Herod was alive, and they'll say, well, Herod died in 4 BC, so Jesus had to have been born before 4 BC. The question is, how much before 4 BC? And they'll note, well, Matthew says that Herod sent the soldiers to slaughter the baby boys in Bethlehem who were 2 years old and younger. So Jesus would have been born 2 years before, so that puts us in the year 6 BC at the latest, maybe 7 BC, somewhere in there, 6 or 7 BC. And that reasoning is very good, but the premises are the problem.
Okay, so
premise number 1, that Herod died in 4 BC, is a problem.
now let me just ask you this, because I mentioned the year 1983. Is this because have been new discoveries between that time and now, or
it's new analysis.
New analysis,
going back over the sources and saying, and it's not that it's going to be different now. Most people in college, because it takes a long time for these ideas to once scholars realize something, it takes a long time for word to get out.
Right.
And so you'd still get a lot of courses and books saying Jesus was born in 6 or 7 BC.
Okay.
But the better analysis of the reign of Herod the Great, and this has been supported by a number of scholars, including Jack Finnegan and Andrew Steinman, to cite a couple of recent examples. He actually died in 1 BC. Herod did, which is the traditional date.
All right.
So that chronology is like 3 years off right there.
Wow.
The other problem is that they're assuming that just because Herod killed the boys who were 2 years old and younger, that Jesus must have been born a full 2 years before. But if I'm Herod and I'm told there's a new pretender to the throne who's just been born that might try to unseat me one day, I'm going to have margin for error. If they tell me he's born, if they tell me he's born a year ago, I'm going to say, okay, double it.
Right.
Because you're a bad guy anyways.
Yeah,
you're already
I'm
a terrible
cautious
person.
guy. Yeah,
right.
Cautious and terrible.
Yeah.
So, you're doing wonders for my self-esteem, Si.
No, you were playing the part of Herod at that point.
Oh, okay.
I didn't mean you, Jimmy Aiken.
In any event,
Yes.
if you take 1 BC, the actual date of his death, and back up by a year or two, then you're going to get into 3 or 2 BC. And so that's a much better estimate of the date of the year. And we have a couple of extra lines of evidence supporting that. If you go to the Gospel of Luke, now Luke is fascinating as a historian. When he has chronological data, he uses it. Okay. If he doesn't have chronological data, he doesn't use it. And you can see this really clearly in Acts. In Acts, the first half of the book is devoted to St. Peter, and we have very few chronological indicators. He'll say this happened to St. Peter and this happened, and they're in this order, but he doesn't say, and a week later this happened. He doesn't have that kind of marker time-wise, presumably because he doesn't have it, because you get into the second half of the book, it's about St. Paul, and initially you get the same kind of stuff. There's not a lot of chronological information in the stories about St. Paul. So St. Peter and St. Paul apparently weren't keeping daily diaries of what was going on.
Right.
But then you get into the travel narratives with St. Paul, and specifically you start getting into what are called the we passages.
Right.
The we passages are sections of Acts where all of a sudden the author of Acts, Luke, starts saying, we did this and we did that.
Right.
implying that he was
He
there
joined
for these things.
Uh-huh.
And when you hit those sections, all of a sudden you get this explosion of detail. Like we stayed here for 2 weeks, and then 3 days later we went to this place, and then it took us another day and we got to this place. Someone was keeping a travel diary
Yeah.
at that point, presumably Luke himself.
Right.
And the fascinating thing, there's a wonderful database called Orbis. It's like orbis.stanford.edu. The Stanford University runs it. It's a database of travel in the Roman world,
Okay.
where you can like put in your entry city and your departure city, your arrival city. You can say what time of the year you're traveling. You can say, do I go by road? Do I go by sea? Do I want to take the fastest route or the cheapest route? It's like
Wow.
it's sort of like,
like
orbits for
Yeah.
the ancient world. Only
Right.
it's Orbis. And so I went through all of the chronological data in the book of Acts once, plugged it into Orbis, and it all works.
Wow.
Oh,
Luke is-
isn't that cool? So
Yeah.
the what Luke remembered
yeah.
or says there is that, that's exactly how long it
Yeah.
would have taken you to get from there to
Exactly.
there.
And
wow,
so-
that's so cool, smart.
So we have this principle from Luke that when he has chronological information, he uses
uses
it.
it, yeah.
But when he doesn't. He doesn't make it up. And so you look at the beginning of Luke chapter 3, we have the start of the ministry of John the Baptist, and he gives us a bunch of chronological indicators for when this happened. It happened during this year of this emperor's reign, when this guy was tetrarch, when this other guy was another tetrarch, when this guy was high priest, and so forth. The key thing, and notice he's dating John the Baptist's ministry, not Jesus's. Well, which one is he more interested in?
yeah, Jesus.
Jesus. So what does that tell us about which one he had chronological information about? He didn't have chronological information specifically about Jesus's, and he didn't make it up. He gave us the information he had, which was about John the Baptist.
Right.
The key thing is he says it's the 15th year of Tiberius Caesar. And so we know when the 15th year of Tiberius Caesar was. He also says later in the same chapter, Jesus was about 30 when he began his ministry. And he indicates Jesus' ministry began really shortly after John the Baptist, so presumably the same year. So you take the 15th year of Tiberius Caesar, you back up about 30 years from that, it lands you in the year 3 or 2 BC.
Got
Wow.
it.
Same one we had the evidence from Matthew for. Then we have the testimony of the church fathers. And you look at the church fathers and all the different things they say about the year Jesus was born. And there are a few outliers, but the clear majority of the church fathers all point to the same year, which was the 42nd year of Augustus Caesar. And the 42nd year of Augustus Caesar, the way they're reckoning it, was the back half of our 3 BC and the front half of our 2 BC.
Got it.
So we've got like 3 different lines of evidence pointing to that as the year Jesus was born.
Okay, so we can pinpoint to within a year then, because you said it
Yeah.
depends on how big our pin is.
Yes.
So
Got a year-size pin.
if you got a year-size
we
pin,
can do it.
then you can get pretty precise information
Wow.
on when Jesus was born. What about a month-size pin?
It gets harder.
Okay.
There are different views among the church fathers about the day on which Jesus was born. Some of them say December 25th. And when they do, you sometimes hear, well, they based it on a pagan holiday and stuff, but that's actually not well supported by the evidence.
Okay.
When they say, the ones who say December 25th, you don't find them saying, hey, guys, let's subvert a pagan holiday by creating a wholesome celebration in its place.
Yeah.
Not like there would be anything wrong with subverting a pagan holiday.
Yeah.
I mean, to my mind, that's actually kind of a good thing to do. But you don't find them saying that. They just say, this is when he was born. So that's what they think.
Okay.
Now, other people say different things. And in fact, the earliest author we have that addresses the question of when Jesus was born is Clement of Alexandria. He wrote a little bit before the year 200.
Okay.
He says November 11th.
Okay.
November 30th. He also mentioned some other people who had dates in like April and May.
Okay.
Another group of people seems to have gravitated to January 6th. That was another kind of popular one. And the ones that ended up winning out are December 20, in terms of popular celebrations, are December 25th and January 6th, which is why we today have Christmas and the Epiphany
Right.
on the calendar.
Right.
So that's where we got those dates. But
So
it's harder.
when you say Clement of Alexandria, that's Alexandria, Egypt?
Egypt, yes.
Okay, so the
Good question, because Alexander the Great founded like
I know.
nine cities, all of them named Alexandria.
you don't
after
get to
himself.
have your last name be the Great without kind of having a high opinion of yourself.
Yeah.
So, all right. So Alexandria and Egypt. Is it possible that there were different regional thoughts on this? Do you see what I mean? Like maybe that. Okay, so that was the North African Christian community's view.
There were, over the course of time, some differences regionally. So the December 25th date tended to be used more in the West. The January 6th date tended to be used more in the East.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
There were also divisions based on your theology. So different schools, theologically speaking, had different preferred dates.
Oh, yeah, maybe in support of their
Yeah.
particular theological views.
There's a fascinating argument for, believe it or not, September 11th.
That's weird.
Yeah, I mean,
Wow,
the
what is
date
that?
has a totally different meaning for us today, but there's a fascinating argument for September 11th, because in the book of Revelation, if you look at chapter 12, John sees the vision of the woman in heaven, right?
Yes.
She's got the crown of 12 stars, she's clothed with the sun, the moon is at her feet, and the dragon is there and ready to eat the child. Well, in ancient astronomy, the dragon, there is more than one dragon constellation. There are actually several, but one of them is at the feet of Virgo. And it is a combination of what we today think of as Scorpio and Libra. And so Virgo is the constellation of the Virgin. And a lot of Christians down through history have said, God said he's going to put signs in the heavens and to mark his plan. It's not like the stars control anything. That's astrology. But God does use signs in the heaven, like the Star of Bethlehem.
Right, yeah.
And also, there was a prophecy in connection with the coming of the Messiah, the moon would turn to blood. Well, guess what? There was a lunar eclipse where the moon turns red, visible from Jerusalem on the night of the crucifixion.
What?
Yeah. Well, so then you look at this passage in Revelation, and a lot of scholars have looked at it and said, okay, so are there any times, because here we have the Virgin Mary giving birth to the Christ child who's going to rule the nations with a rod of iron, according to Revelation. So are there any times in the relevant time frame where the sun, because the woman is clothed in the sun, where the sun would have been about mid-body and where the moon would have been at the feet of Virgo? And it turns out that happens for like 80 minutes once every few centuries or something, and it happened to happen on September 11th, 3 BC.
That is
Oh,
incredible.
now you're freaking me out, man. You're freaking me. Oh, so people would have
And so
put all that together.
The claim
Yeah,
is that,
right.
that for people who advocate this view, that John, the Revelator, knew this. He knew that's when Jesus was born. He knew about this phenomenon in the sky, and he recorded it in Revelation.
Okay, but that's interesting and even a little freaky. But I would like to know
not
the
proof.
the future times that this is going to happen.
Yes.
Well, we already covered that.
So don't bother yourself
Yeah.
with that. Again, this is Cy Kellett, and you are listening to Catholic Answers Today on Radio Maria US, a Christian voice in your home. We're talking with Jimmy Akin, senior apologist here at Catholic Answers, about Advent and the things that we do and don't know about the birth of Christ. Our co-host today, Emily Sanchez, the executive assistant to the president of the world. No, of Catholic
Just of
Answers.
Catholic Answers.
Okay, all right. I'm glad
That
we
would
got
be
that.
scary.
The president of the world?
Yeah,
no, I don't
that's
want.
getting into a little bit of end time stuff.
Yeah, I don't want there to be a president of the world. I think I like America.
Hey, by the way, one other thing about
Yeah.
Jesus' birth. So you'll hear a lot of people say he couldn't have been born in the winter because of the sheep that were
I have in fact
outdoors.
heard that
Yeah.
claim. Yes.
Well, it is so not. There are a couple things. Number one, they didn't have like big heated barns in the first century to put their sheep in wintertime.
Oh yeah, right.
So, they would leave them outside, and in fact, they do that today. There's a famous letter from 1967 that a New Testament scholar who was visiting Bethlehem on Christmas Eve
Yeah.
wrote to a colleague, and he wrote back and said, "Guess what? The shepherds were out there last night, and they even had their lambs with them." So even today,
Okay, so
at Shepherd's
that's
Field
not
in
a real
Bethlehem.
objection then, that the shepherds would have been indoors.
Yeah. Also, anybody who knows about sheep care
Yes.
would be aware of this, because see, the thing is, you know that stuff sheep are covered with?
Yes, cotton, right? Is that
well,
cotton?
close.
No, not
close.
cotton.
Looks like cotton.
Okay. What is it?
Well, so they're covered in wool.
Yes, they're covered in wool.
And we cut it off of them to make garments for
keep us
us
warm.
to keep us warm. So guess what it does for the sheep?
Yeah.
It keeps them warm. It also keeps moisture out. And so if you just Google winter sheep care,
Yeah.
you will find all kinds of web pages saying don't bother putting your sheep indoors in winter. They're fine outside. They evolved for that. You'll even find pictures of like sheep with snow on them, on the wool.
And it's not bothering.
And it's not bothering them. So sheep are actually fine outdoors in the winter. That's how they started. That's what they're
I have no idea
set up
what the
for.
winter in Bethlehem might be like either. It's
actually a lot like Southern California.
Oh, come on, then.
The climate in Israel is a lot like the climate in Southern California.
yeah.
So
All
you're
right.
definitely fine outside at
Yeah.
night.
Just speaking of sheep, before I go on to the other things we want to get to about Advent with you, Jimmy, and Jimmy Aiken, our guest, is senior apologist here, and the brand new book is called Teaching with Authority. But I have a friend who's a farmer, and he has cattle and sheep and a bunch of other stuff, and he said, we think of, like when the Bible says that we're sheep and all that, he said we think of sheep as these like passive creatures that are very easy to handle. He said sheep are a pain in the neck. He said
they're not real bright.
He said they're not bright. They're to keep them together is constant work, and to get them all to go the same direction. He said it's much easier to deal with cattle. So the idea that we're
Like sheep.
like sheep,
That we are like sheep.
we
That's
should have a
wonderful.
little bit different image of what sheep. When we see how difficult, for example, the life of the church is today. Yeah, well, sheep are difficult.
Yeah, when the Gospels say that Jesus saw that the people were like sheep without a shepherd, it means like completely helpless, because sheep have been domesticated for so long.
Yeah.
They are so dependent on humans that that they cannot care for themselves. They are really helpless creatures and not real smart.
Yeah. Okay, so
But they're very useful.
what do we do liturgically then? What are we know. I think we spoke. Well, I don't know if we spoke about the O antiphons last week, but there are different readings. What's going on with the scripture readings and whatnot in Advent?
Well, you'll notice, because we mentioned it's a season of preparation for the two comings of Christ, so
Yes.
we start getting scripture readings that reflect both of those, which is why you have this kind of weird juxtaposition of texts that both talk about, the prophesied birth of the Messiah and then the end of the world. And that's what's going on in those.
Oh, so that's why we're getting the mix of the kind of apocalyptic, and then this week the readings had to do with filling in the valleys and bringing down the mountains.
Yep. Making a highway for our God so he can travel smoothly.
Seems very un-PC. I mean, we're disturbing the earth. Are we allowed to do that?
I don't think that was their concern.
No, but after that reading, I was driving home and watching them build this large bridge-like structure to go across a valley up north of here. And
a trestle?
What does that mean, trestle? Oh,
It's this bridge-like structure that goes across a valley.
yeah, but this is a weird one because it's like a very wide valley, and it'll go on land, and then you have to see it. It's a combination of, but I thought that's what they're talking about. It's very easy to get from one side of the valley to the other now. It's not a matter of, we're going to destroy nature and tear down the
It's
mountains.
also cheaper to just build a trestle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cheaper than filling in a.
Than tearing down a mountain and putting it in a valley to fill it in.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so again, Jimmy Akin is our guest. Our co-host is Emily Sanchez, and you are listening to Catholic Answers today on Radio Maria, U.S., a Christian voice in your home. You can find out all about us at Catholic.com. We also have Facebook and YouTube pages and all that. And you can find all about Radio Maria at radiomaria.us. And please do that. Find out about all these good things going on. We got a lot of stuff on Catholic.com. I mean, if you got questions about the Catholic faith, there's probably an answer to it there.
It's a wealth of information, a great source. Can we go back and talk more about the O antiphons, though? Because I'm very fascinated by those.
I'm sorry, I skipped right over that. Go ahead. Yeah.
You mentioned it.
Tell us about the O antiphons, Emily.
Oh, I was hoping you would, Jimmy.
Well, first of all, why are they called the O antiphons?
Well, aren't they antiphons that are sung during Vespers?
Yes.
During the 7 days leading up to Christmas.
Yes, to Christmas. And then there's something about they spell our Lord's name or something like that, but I
don't know that.
Well, that I'd have to check.
But let's go
well, maybe
real
I'm
basic.
wrong.
Why are they called the O antiphons?
Well, they start with O,
They
right?
all start with O. Like
and we don't mean the letter O. We mean the interjection O.
The expression,
the
yeah.
word O.
like oh,
Yeah,
merciful Savior. Or,
Oh, merciful Savior would be an example.
Yeah.
I was thinking. So you know what the word for O in Greek is?
What?
In Latin?
What?
O.
Oh,
Same word.
hey.
It's different in the Semitic languages. I was thinking. I know in Arabic it's Yah. And I'm thinking it may be Yah in Aramaic too, but it's been a while, so I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to look that up to confirm it.
So it's just an
It's
exclamation.
a particle of direct address. It signals someone that you're talking to them.
Yeah, right. And they're very joyful, the O antiphons. But we don't pray as Christians maybe Vespers as much as once we did. I don't. If you maybe in a little village in the Middle Ages, you've been more familiar with heading
here at
over to
Catholic
the
Answers
church.
we do.
Yeah,
We
right,
do pray Vespers,
right, and,
but
and
yes.
certainly monasteries and religious do and all that. But I imagine many parishes might do it for those 7 days. Might gather to pray the O antiphons. I keep forgetting to give out the number 888-318-7884 if you have a question, or if your parish prays Vespers and sings the O antiphons. 888-318-7884. All of this stuff, though, all of this, like the way the scripture readings are, and even the sacramentals of this season, and I wouldn't even say sacramentals, but the
traditions.
The traditions,
right?
yeah, that's the traditions of the season.
Now, you haven't mentioned what's the big obvious visual thing about Advent.
Okay.
The Advent wreath. Is that what you're going towards?
Eventually, but I was going to go somewhere even more obvious first.
I think colors. I think that's
the liturgical
right.
color.
the liturgical colors, and these. It's purple, and I would say pink,
Or
but
violet.
Is violet.
Rose.
But
Rose?
then
Rose.
on
Rose.
on Gaudete Sunday, there is the option that's used in some places but not everywhere of using rose.
Okay, so purple is a royal color or a color of penance. What are we doing here?
Well, so what I can tell you is that the church's documents say that purple is the color, but they don't say why.
Oh, all right.
And it's actually kind of confusing because the fact, I mean, we also use purple for what other liturgical season?
Emily?
I'll answer this
Yeah.
one. I think I know it. Lent.
Okay, Lent. And is Lent a penitential season?
Yes, certainly.
Yeah, so that leads people to draw the following inference, Psychelet.
That Advent is a season of penance.
Yeah, but guess what?
What?
It's not.
What?
You hear this all the time, that Lent is a season of penance.
Yeah.
You check the church. In fact, I heard someone this week say exactly that. But you check the church's liturgical documents, and it's actually not the case. For the Latin Church, the times of penance are defined in the Code of Canon Law.
Okay.
And they include every Friday of the year and Lent, period.
Oh, so there's no other.
Advent. And I've had some people try to say, oh, well, I've heard this. It must be true. Therefore, it used to be a period of penance, and this is some new post-Vatican II thing that it's not. So I went and checked the previous liturgical documents.
Okay.
Guess what?
No.
Not a season of penance then either.
Well, okay, a couple of questions about that. One, there is abstaining and fasting in Lent for monastics, that kind of thing. Like, don't eat meat, or in some cases,
In Advent, you mean?
In Advent. Did I say Lent? I meant, in Advent. So
There was also that every Friday of the year prior to Penitentiary in 1966.
And Penitentiary is...
That was a document where Pope Paul VI revised the Church's laws on penance and gave national conferences the ability to further modify them.
Yeah. Okay. So there is something, whether it's penitential or just expectation, there is something about being in a different state of mind during Advent.
Yeah.
And
preparing for Christ's second coming and his first coming spiritually by repenting of sin and things like that. It does, create an occasion where we may voluntarily do penance.
Okay.
And so forth, or it may even be obligatory in some religious orders. But in terms of saying Lent is a penitential or Advent is a penitential season, that's actually not provided for in the Church's documents.
Okay, so we're preparing for Christmas. And so what do you? How do you, Jimmy Akin, think about what should we be doing to prepare? What are the ways of preparing for the coming?
You're not looking for get your shopping done early, are you?
No, although that would be a Christmas
maybe.
miracle if I ever did that.
Oh, right.
Me and all the other dads we all see each other at Christmas Eve. It's what it is, a kind of. Well, I have noticed that among some men, I will include myself among them, the kids' shopping is all done. It's your wife you get to on Christmas Eve because you're like, you've been doing all this other stuff and you're like, oh, I'm married.
That's terrible, Si.
I better do. Is that terrible? Well, it's before
Well, you're
Christmas.
just saving the best for last.
Christmas Eve is before
put the
Christmas.
most- You put the most-
nice fig leaf there.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. Thanks. I try. You put the most thought into it. That's why it takes you so long.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Thanks.
Let's go with that.
I'm gonna
Let's go with
stop digging
that.
These
my
are
hole.
great rationalizations. You should use these.
You think I'm not? I'm using them right now interiorly. Okay, so I guess the one is the Christmas season, and I put that in quotes because there's a
Starts at Christmas.
well, the liturgical Christmas season
yeah.
starts at Christmas, but the worldly Christmas season
Starts
is now.
as soon as the marketers can start it.
Right, it starts
Day
on
after
Halloween or something.
Mhm, exactly.
So, in your view, is the Christmas season an impediment to the Advent season? That is,
absolutely.
It is.
Yeah. There's so you asked how can we prepare for Christmas, and there are bunches of ways. I mean, obviously, reflecting on the readings, participating in things like Vespers, repenting of sin, going to confession, things like that. All of those are great things. There are also specific Advent traditions that are found in various parts of the world. You can read about them in a document called the Directory for Popular Piety in the liturgy. It came out during the pontificate of John Paul II. It's available on the Vatican website for free. And it goes through the whole liturgical year and talks about customs that are used in different parts of the world for these things. Once again, it's called the Directory for Popular Piety and the Liturgy.
Okay.
And in the section on Advent, it's got a bunch of Advent customs, and it's fascinating to read because it does talk about ones that are used in different parts of the world. So the Advent wreath, which you mentioned, Emily, that's used in Germanic countries and in North America.
Oh,
but
okay.
not so much elsewhere.
All right.
But other parts of the world have their own customs. A lot of them have Advent processions, and they will have that in Italy and in Spanish-speaking countries, and they will, among other things, model those processions off the journey of Mary and Joseph seeking to find an inn to stay at.
Is that what the posadas is?
That's what the posadas are.
Oh, okay.
And I was just going to mention those. And so That's another custom that's used. There's also a novena for the Immaculate Conception that we just had this last
That's another practice.
Saturday, because Immaculate Conception always falls in Advent. There's a Christmas novena leading up to Christmas. And there's some other ones as well, but you can read about those in the Directory for Popular Piety.
Never even knew that existed. The Directory for Popular.
It's fascinating.
Popular piety. So your last name is Sanchez.
That's correct.
Now I don't want to be insensitive, but did you celebrate the Posadas?
We did not.
Okay.
I wish that we had. They seem beautiful. I think my sister did in the convent, though. When my sister was in a convent, it was a Spanish convent, and they would do the Posadas every year. And I know she just loved it.
So for people who are not familiar with those, how would y'all describe them?
I don't know the days or all, that you do it and all that kind of thing, but it's a series. It's a series of. Now I'm going to get it confused with Simbang Gabi. Do you know what Simbang Gabi is?
No.
I don't.
That's the Filipino celebration leading up to Christmas.
Oh,
beautiful.
And those are in the morning, and they involve singing. But I think Posadas, they involve singing in the morning too, or no?
I think it's singing in the evening, right?
In the
and
evening.
you go from door to door,
door to
seeking
door.
shelter.
Yeah.
And they slam the door in your face at every occasion?
Yeah, but right, something like that.
Sure. Symbolic of the inns, the inns not having room for them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. So I think Simbang Gabi is very much like that. We, here at San Diego, we have all these different traditions. I know there's a Vietnamese one too, and they're all getting muddled in my head. So I apologize for that. Next time we should all prepare with something from the Posadas.
Or call in and tell us. You can call in and tell us if you know these customs
888-318-7884. If you're familiar with Posadas, is Posadas a Mexican tradition or just a general?
In the Spanish-speaking world.
In the Spanish-speaking world, okay.
I gather.
And you can call us 888-318-7884. You're listening to Catholic Answers today on Radio Maria US. We have answers to every single one of your Catholic questions except how do you celebrate the Posadas before Christmas?
And Posadas means inns.
Inns.
In
Okay, so that's where
Spanish.
you
So,
go from place to place. Yeah.
To the uneducated American ear that's not familiar with Spanish, it could sound like something you order at Taco Bell, but it's not.
Oh, tostadas.
It's
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
a series of inns or hotels.
I wonder if I'm a bad Catholic because I could tell you more about tostadas than posadas. Do you think that makes me a bad Catholic? So that document you mentioned, what was the
Directory for Popular Piety in the Liturgy.
Okay, so that is going to turn me towards your book for a second, because I want to ask you about the book. Emily, give us the title and subtitle again, will you?
Teaching with Authority, How to Cut Through Doctrinal Confusion and Understand What the Church Really Says.
Which we should probably mention people can get from us here at Catholic Answers.
Right, you can get it at Catholic.com. But so that's one of those questions, though. So there's this directory. Let me put it this way. There's a lot of church documents.
Yes.
How do I evaluate them? And that's what this book is about, right? How do I evaluate what the level and authority and binding nature of particular teachings or particular documents are?
And so that's actually a great question to raise in connection with the Directory for Popular Piety, because it was not put out by the Pope. It was put out by one of the departments at the Vatican, and whenever you're evaluating the authority of a Vatican document, the key thing is to look, if it's not a papal document, is to look and see, is it approved by the Pope? If it's specifically approved by the Pope and it's a teaching document, then it participates in the Pope's own teaching ministry or his magisterium. And it becomes a magisterial document by being approved by the Pope as a teaching document.
Okay.
So you look at the Directory for Popular Piety, and there is a really nice preface to it where John Paul II, when it was presented to him, said nice things about it and how great it is that you guys have come up with this.
Right.
But he didn't say, "Oh, and I approve it as a teaching document." So it's actually
So
not.
it's just a helpful document
It's a
from
helpful.
the Vatican.
It's guidelines. It reflects the thinking at the Vatican.
Yeah.
But it is not itself a legal document or a teaching document. It's kind of a pastoral, helpful document.
And that's all you find all about how to make those evaluations in Teaching with Authority. I want to go to a phone call though, because
yes.
Sergio from McAllen, Texas, is on the line, and I believe he has some information on posadas for us. Sergio, are you there with us?
Good morning, Jimmy. Good morning, Sai. How are you?
Good morning, and Emily's here with us as well.
Good morning, Emily.
Good morning.
Are you going to help us out with the posadas? Was that pathetic or what? That we just came to a screeching halt over those posadas?
Well, not much, because the posadas is much more like a lot of comes from like Mexico and Latin American places. And I'm sure, like you were saying, there are like traditions like from the Philippines and the Vietnamese. I mean, they have their traditions as well. So we have a lot.
So tell us about the posadas.
Okay, usually they do have to start like on the 16th of December.
Okay.
And they are at night. And they usually, it's kind of like doing like a reenactment of like when Joseph and Mary are going to Bethlehem and asking for a place to stay. So we usually get like two persons, one to be Joseph, one to be Mary, and with people like in a procession. And they've already designated some houses that are going to be the ones where they're going to let them in. Not going to let them in, like how Jimmy said, they're going to set the door on them. And there is some singing. I don't have the singing on me, but there's some singing that, that they're asking that to go in. And the first three houses, they're not let in. On the fourth house, they are let in when they mentioned Mary at the end, and they let them in, and everyone goes in. And that fourth house has already been designated, so a lot of people from around the neighborhood or the community, they go and they take like food, and they have like a potluck there at the end. And they do have like for the kids the piñata, but it's what represents it's for the posada one. But it's not just any piñata. It can't be like a cartoon or anything. It has to be one with the 7 stars representing the 7 deadly sins. And that
so you get to beat the candy out of the 7 deadly sins.
To break it.
Wow.
And when candy comes out, and so a lot of kids like it because of the candy and such. So.
Yeah.
And usually it's done at every different house, different neighborhoods, from the 16th all the way to the 23rd.
And so you get a party every night up until the 23rd?
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
That I just became Mexican, by the way, Sergio. Hey, Sergio.
Wonderful.
Thanks for that call. We want to send you a free book if you hang on. I hear the music though, so we have to go. Thank you for the call, Sergio. Hang on, we'll get your address if you'd like to get a free book from Catholic Answers. Emily Sanchez, thank you for being our co-host and for knowing nothing about the posadas.
Oh, thanks for having me.
She knew some about them.
And Jimmy Akin, senior apologist here at Catholic Answers, author of the brand new book Teaching with Authority. Thank you for taking the morning with us.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And we will see you next time on Catholic Answers Today on Radio Maria, U.S.